Yes.
But this thought got into the Ferris wheel, like a person getting into a little Ferris wheel compartment. And the Ferris wheel was just like, you are horrible.
Yes.
You are. And it was just like feeding this old thing. But it was crazy how quick it would go from, maybe if I'd asked her to go to a dance, or even if I just had some interest in my head, but she never looked at me or something, and I would have.
Child that can't resolve it, nobody's supporting them, nobody's giving them tools to handle it, it turns into trauma. They're a victim. They're a legitimate victim, a helpless victim who can't fix the problem. And so they are legitimate victims. The problem is that they still feel like a victim as an adult, even though they're not a victim now. They now have tools and support. And that's one of the hardest transitions, is to move from, I was a legitimate victim, but now I got to take responsibility because I can.
Yeah.
And some don't want to do that because they like staying a victim, because then I don't have to be responsible. People feel so sorry for me. I can blame somebody. I don't have to grow up.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about complex trauma. So what is it? How would we say what it is?
So trauma is so the event happens on the outside, but I can't handle it. It's too painful. It's too scary for me. So it creates this fear and stress that I don't have the tools to handle.
Okay.
And so as a result of that, since I can't fix it and resolve it, it then wounds me on the inside. And that's the trauma, is what takes place on the inside. Why we call it complex trauma. So it's really mathematical terms. So there's simple math and there's complex math. So simple is one number, complex is more than one. So simple trauma is a one event trauma, a car accident, a rape, whatever. Complex is ongoing danger. So a child's in a situation where they're in ongoing danger. So their stress system is constantly activated. Like, do I fight, flight? What do I do here? I got to get out of here. I can't handle this. I can't handle this. So that when a child lives in that environment all the time, where they're constantly activated to fight, flight, but if they're too little to fight or flight, then they eventually go, oh, I'm shutting her down, freeze. I can't handle this. So they go into this dissociative, let's go into an internal world to protect ourselves and create a fantasy world because it's safe there. And so complex trauma comes out of basically abuse or neglect. So the two extreme ends of the spectrum. So the abuse we can easily imagine, that's physical abuse, emotional abuse, that's harsh environment, violence, etc. But a lot of complex trauma comes out of neglect. And that's the other end of the spectrum, where all the physical needs of the child were met, but their emotional needs weren't met. So the abuse trauma, something happens to you. Neglect trauma, something didn't. Oh, because shame, one of the most powerful aspects of shame is that it creates this inner critic in our brain. That's no matter what we do, it criticizes it. It finds fault with it. And if we fail especially, it just beats us up. And like we're in the doghouse for weeks. It's just flogging us. And it's just loud and it is brutal there.
Yeah. It would be everything. You're poor. Your body's gross. You're
ugly. You're stupid.
You're ugly. You're stupid.
Everybody want you. You're never amount to anything. You're a failure.
Oh, I mean, and it was like a machine gun.
Yes.
And the craziest part was now I have a little bit more I'm able to see it more. But man, for 30 years of my life, I couldn't even see it.
Yes. And so what happens, complex trauma for most people begins from birth.
Okay.
And so it's pre-memory time, pre-verbal time. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the stuff that's happening in their brain is all happening subconsciously. They're not thinking about it. They're an infant. It's all subconscious. So your whole subconscious brain is forming with all this negative stuff. And that's a real tragedy of complex trauma, is it's shaping the brain in the infant years with negative messages, lies, negative perceptions that you're not even aware of there. You just think are normal.
And those can be like a parent not looking at its child and not interacting.
Exactly.
There's probably countless things that could create trauma at that age, right?
Exactly. So what we know is a child needs to feel safe. They need lots of hugs and touches. They need eye contact. That's how they learn to regulate. That's how they learn to feel and experience emotions, by picking up on the parents' emotions. That's how their emotions get calmed, by looking into somebody who's calm. But if they don't have that, then it's like, it's me against the big bad world, and I'm only 1 week old. Like it's too overwhelming. It's too scary.
Yeah, you got to be a gangster suddenly.
Yeah.
And you're only 7 days old.
Exactly.
Then you can't even carry a gun.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And so that's a lot of pressure. Oh.
So the first response to danger is the brain releases cortisol, which is adrenaline, and that gives you the energy to fight or flight. Okay. So you can fight harder, you can run faster because you got adrenaline happening. But if you're too little to fight or flight, then cortisol's not doing you any good. And if your parents are punishing you for being angry, etc., the brain then switches and produces opioids, natural opioids, and it says we're going to shut down. And so what happens with that is that you dissociate, you move inward, and all the blood comes from the muscles around the heart, because it's basically saying we're going to get ready to get hurt. We're going to get ready to get cut so we don't bleed as much. So we're going to put all the blood around here so that if we get hurt out here, cut out here, we're not going to bleed as much.
Really? Your body does that?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So your body's now gone to that fight or flight don't work. So now we're going to freeze. And so then what some kids learn in freeze is, but I still need my needs met. So now I learn to fawn. So I will learn to say whatever you want me to say, be whatever you want me to be. Just don't hurt me. Just put up with me. Whatever.
Wow.
So that's your 4 F's that develop. But what happens?
What are they again? So we know them?
Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Wow.
But what has happened is, so fight or flight, your emotions are out there. Freeze, your emotions go in. You shut them down. And so most people with complex trauma don't do well with emotions. They shut down emotions. They don't even know they have emotions. And so what we say is that most complex trauma families, they have 3 emotions: mad, sad, and glad. So dad can be mad, mom can be sad, but the kid's got to be glad.
Man. Yeah, I remember I would ask people, how do I feel about this? Which is crazy, man. I know some of this sounds maybe crazy to some people, but yeah, I remember I just didn't even have I didn't know how I felt about anything.
Yeah.
You know, I just knew how you felt.
Yes.
And how I needed to seem.
Yes. And so what happens to a child who's fawning is I'm more attuned to how you're feeling than to how I'm feeling.
Oh yeah, I was fawning. I was a damn Bambi, baby. You know what I'm saying? I was like a Bambi in Memphis. I wasn't,
So I know your emotions better than my own. I know what you think and believe more than what I think.
Right.
Because that's how I need to survive, is I need to be more attuned to you than I am to me.
Yeah. For me, I noticed addiction focus.
Originally. And so I started in the addiction world, and we were the only treatment center in Canada that saw addiction as a symptom of deeper problems. And the lady that trained me said, Tim, your job is to find those problems. And complex trauma wasn't even on the radar then. It was called adult children of alcoholics.
ACA or whatever?
Adult children of dysfunction. Then it became known as developmental trauma disorder. Then, then complex trauma came in on the radar. But basically what it's saying is that we always see addiction as a problem, but to an addict, it was the solution to their problems. And so until we begin to realize what problem are they trying to solve by turning to drugs and alcohol, that deep loneliness, the deep pain, the deep emptiness, that deep longing to feel connected, all of those drugs seem to solve that for them. And so we can't really help people with addiction by just working on the symptoms. We got to get to that root issue. So I was in part of Canada where all the treatment centers were talking about trauma, and we got to be trauma informed. And so I asked them, is anybody willing to change their program? And none of them were. And I had started, some addicts asked me to start a Friday night thing where I started teaching this stuff. So that's where these videos started. So I started 17 years ago teaching around what I was learning, and started with 50 addicts coming out, and it grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, your channel's fascinating, man.
Yeah. And so what came out of that was when there were 10 treatment centers, nobody would change their program.
Wow.
Though they all said they needed to start dealing with the trauma. So I said, well, I guess I got to start. And I didn't want to start a treatment center, but I did. So React started as a treatment center for addiction and complex trauma. And it spread to 3 different locations in Canada. But then COVID hit, and so we put it online. And then once people heard, and we call it Lift, just to give it a different name because it was online. And once people heard about it, now we have people from over 30 different countries that are.
So that was a blessing, huh?
Yeah. And so now like thousands are taking Lift, and it's much more intense. It's a 15-week program, but you get a deep dive into understanding trauma and then learning what a healthy life looks like and connecting with a group of people in the journey.
Wow. That's incredible, man.
So in the days when treatment centers just basically worked on symptoms, so relapse warning signs, triggers, people, places, and things, HALT, all of the hungry, angry,
lonely, tired,
all of those different things. What they saw was their success rate was less than 10%. Once we started React and we've kept statistics, our success rate is over 50%.
Let's go, Tim. That's great.
Yeah, because you're dealing with helping people deal with that core stuff that's been the issue.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that I loved being in AA, I didn't even know sometimes if I was an alcoholic, right? I still question the alcohol part. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know that I would sit in meetings and people would get to share how they felt. And I never got to do that.
Exactly.
You know, like no one ever asked me how I fucking felt, you know? It was just like, if I had a feeling, whatever it was, I didn't even probably know what it was for years.
Exactly.
I probably thought I had indigestion in my brain, you know, like
Exactly.
who knows?
Exactly.
But if I had a feel, I had to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, it just, so, when I got into the rooms and people could share how they felt and nobody could say anything, there's no crosstalk allowed. So somebody got to share how they felt and it just got to sit there.
Is what they begin to realize is it's like there's a part of them that got left behind that's still a child. So some refer to it as like their inner child, but the little boy that's still down there. And some have a whole bunch of little boys that are different ages and different.
Well, that person is a politician.
Exactly. But anyways, what they've realized is there's a part of them that kind of hates that little boy and wishes you shut up and quit bugging them and grow up and all of that. Kind of treats them like they were treated, and they have to learn to love and nurture that little boy.
Okay.
Because that's part of them. And just welcome them, make space for them, be curious. What's going on? Why are you upset? Like, I'm not going to judge you. Just help me understand. And then help them process through it, because nobody helped them process through it. And eventually that little boy can heal. And so that's a useful tool for a lot of people, is beginning to go, let's welcome that little boy and parent that little boy, even though it's me, but it's part of me. And it's a part of me that got wounded.
So if somebody's sitting there right now who's listening, right? And they're like, how would you start to have some of that conversation with yourself? And is there a certain setting you would kind of do it in, just to even try and get us some awareness of that inner child, as people say?
A lot of it's different for everybody, and so you got to kind of find what works for you. What some people do is they can go in their imagination to kind of a safe place in their house that they liked as a kid, or a safe place in the backyard, or a tree, or something in the woods, whatever, and they can go there and kind of picture that little child and connect with that little child. Others can do it through going through like picture albums, see when they were 4 years old, when they're 7 years old, and go, oh, I remember what I was feeling then and what I was thinking. Or the other one is when they get triggered and that voice in their head, and they go, well, okay, how old do I feel right now? And they go, I feel 3, I feel 8. And it's like, okay, let's connect with that part of me. And that's that part of your limbic brain that's been triggered, which doesn't keep track of time, that's still stuck at that age.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point. When that's happening, that part of you is showing up.
Exactly.
So that's crazy as it is, it's a great time to connect.
What I say to people is a trigger, don't get down on yourself if you get triggered. Go, a trigger is my little boy saying, ouch. And be curious and go, it's trying to get my attention, saying there's a wound here that never has
What's
been
going on,
healed.
buddy?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to this center for a week. It was in, this was in Scottsdale. It was about like, sexual health, not necessarily about actual physical acts of sex, but it like emotional